Welcome to Cocktail Hour. I'm Andy.
And I'm the Rev.
Tonight we have a special guest, our first guest appearing on Cocktail Hour. We are so excited. Okay, everybody, we want a warm welcome given out for Sue Garrett, who is the site owner for conquerorslibrary.com, which we mentioned in our last show. And if you notice, I think we also put it in the show notes. So, Sue, welcome to our craziness.
No, thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Oh, well, we're happy to have you. This show is brought to you by Gin.
Gin.
Mm-hmm. We had originally decided to have Gin Rickeys for this podcast. However,
the Gin Rickey wasn't very good.
No.
It was kind of gross. And so Andy suggested we move to the Gin and Tonic, which was much, much better.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it didn't taste like sucking dirty ass. So,
No.
yeah, Gin and Tonic is the way to go, sister. Way to go.
Dirty ass with hemorrhoids.
Oh! Ooh, damn. I haven't eaten dinner yet. Oh, yuck. And the non-drinkers among us are having a Coke.
I'm a Pepsi girl myself, but okay.
Well, you're from Wisconsin. What do you know?
Coke is it, man.
I'm with Sue on this one. Today's podcast, we're going to talk about the late, great L.J. Maas. She has written some amazing, amazing stories. And she left this earth on October 29th, 2005 from cancer. And we hope that we're going to do a respectful, but yet fun show about LJ. And maybe in the great beyond somewhere, she's listening to us and rolling her eyes. Let's hope she gets a little enjoyment out of it. So, Rev, we talk about what's on the slab. What stories did we decide to read and review on the show?
Well, we decided, she's got so much stuff, and it's all really good. So we decided to go with None So Blind, which is my personal favorite, and Tumbleweed Fever, which is a bit different. But I had some interesting revelations while reading it, which I didn't have the first time or two that I read it. So I'm looking forward to that. I imagine we'll shoot off into some of our other stuff, but those are the two that we selected to start with.
Yep, sure did. And Sue, I heard you crayon for today's event, and so you reread Tumbleweed Fever and None So Blind.
Yeah, y'all were kind enough to pick the two stories I haven't read yet.
Oh, yay!
We do our best.
I know you tried hard and you did well, but I really did enjoy the two stories.
Excellent. Tumbleweed Fever, which I had read the online version, and that's one of the great things about the vast majority of L.J. Maas's work is that almost all of it is available online. And Sue, we'll let you talk a little bit later about what you guys have going on over at the Conquerors Library as far as what you're doing in general, and then also the L.J. Maas page that you've got going on. So I had previously read None So Blind and the because, I love PDAfiction.com just for the simple fact that everything is compiled and I'm a lazy bitch. So, so None So Blind I got from PDA Fiction, and then Tumbleweed Fever is also there along, and so is Meridio's Daughter, which I imagine we'll probably talk about. But I splurged and I bought all of L.J. Maas's work available in ebook. So I reread Tumbleweed Fever in the published version, and I'm about halfway finished, just over halfway finished with Prairie Fire, the sequel to that. So what do you want to start with? You want to start with None So Blind, or you want to start with Tumbleweed Fever?
How about we let the guest decide?
Okay. Oh, cool. Okay.
Okay, I like None So Blind. That was my favorite one of them.
Excellent.
Although,
we should have a...
Oh, well, what I was going to say is it didn't read like an Uber. In fact, I was talking to Andy about it, and we were wondering if it was an Uber or an original. And in her notes, she calls it an Uber Warrior Princess.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Well, I can
truly
see
did
where.
enjoy that one.
Well, let's give a little recap of what None So Blind is about. And I did not reread it for this show, but I've read it so many times previously that I didn't feel like I really needed to. So None So Blind takes us on a many-year journey. There's a 15, it's one of those gappy ones, right?
Yeah,
So
15 years. Mm-hmm.
You have Tori Gray, a freshman at University of Maine in some town that Comba something with an O and a C and a N, and there's another O in there too, I think. So you have Tori Gray, who's a freshman, and you have Taylor. Oh, don't tell me Taylor Kent. Taylor Kent, who is a senior. And they're in the same sorority. The initials are TAZ, Taz, Tau Alpha Zeta, I think. So they end up being roommates and become best friends. They each, as becomes pretty clear pretty quickly, they each fall in love with one another, but it's one of those stories where neither one has the guts to say anything to the other one, and it goes on and on and on and on. And then 15 years later, Tori Gray, who ends up being an author, and maybe that's where you see the Bard tie-in. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that is where the Bard tied in.
So you have the Bard tie-in. Okay, so Tori Gray's 15-year-old daughter is having some issues with drugs and alcohol, and Tori is at the end of her rope. She doesn't know what to do. So after 15 years of no verbal contact, she calls Taylor and says, I need you to take her. And that's kind of how it goes. As far as the Uber tie-ins, not only do you have Tori with the author, but you also have Taylor, who is insanely protective over Tori. There's some martial arts in there, but I think mostly it's that strong, stoic protector. So, I mean, I can see it in addition to, I mean, the blatantly obvious physical characteristics.
Yeah, true. I found it interesting that even though there was a 15-year gap, they were so close in college, and once Taylor graduated from college, she actually, I guess, they got a house or an apartment, and for the first 2 years of the daughter's life, they all lived as a family, and that closeness is what helped solidify, I think, their relationship, and gave Tori permission, if you will, to allow her daughter to go and be with Taylor for a while to try and get her head on straight.
Mm-hmm. I really like the, and you have that whole soulmate thing going too. You know, both of them had lovers during that 15-year period, but neither one was able to find that person that filled the same space in the heart that was left when they separated.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why I particularly like this story myself, if I may interject.
Please.
As of next month, I'll have 5 years recovery. The angle of the addiction was really interesting to me, how they put that in there.
Mm-hmm.
And congratulations.
I also found it interesting. Well, thank you. Also, I found it interesting, the daughter, JT,
Mm-hmm.
she strongly physically resembled Taylor.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was really cool how they put that in there.
Yeah, because Tori apparently couldn't have Taylor, and subconsciously she went to the male version. You know,
and that was even before she realized. You know, it wasn't until after she had slept with him. I don't remember the guy's name, but it wasn't until after she slept with him that she realized that she had. And she talks about that she had given that gift away to the wrong person.
Yeah.
And Taylor also finds herself sleeping with nothing but really petite blondes.
Ironic.
Right.
I gotta say though, of L.J. Maas's offerings, this is probably my least favorite of them all, and I think that's because there's a few reasons. One is I don't like that whole 15-year gap because personally I relate it to me. I don't feel the same about somebody I slept with 15 years ago. I don't care how close I was to them, even if it was a secret crush. 15 years later, I'm like, oh, please, you're like last week's news. You know? So harboring something just like, no. So I couldn't relate to that. As far as the addiction goes, I don't have something. Well, I probably could if I tried to quit smoking. It's like worse than heroin. But I couldn't relate to the addiction part of it either. So overall, in that pining away thing, it's like just put your damn cards on the table. Especially if they've made sure LJ put in the book that they had communications like holidays and birthdays and that kind of crap throughout that 15 years. At some point, you would think somebody would put on their big girl pants and just pony up. But that's just me. So it was very hard for me in many respects to relate to that story.
Well, I know LJ put in towards the end had Taylor's mom saying it wouldn't have worked 15 years ago. It was best that you waited 15 years.
Yeah, what is she, a soothsayer? Come on now. Seriously. What is she, look at her crystal ball? I mean, come on.
True. I guess that's why they call it fiction.
I could see why it wouldn't have worked out 15 years, earlier than what had actually happened. They were both very young, and if I look at myself, 50. Well, maybe I'm not a good example since I've been with the same person for the last 24 years, but just different, and it's hard work to try and maintain a relationship. And they had, she's got a kid and wanted to go, was finishing her schooling, and I don't know. I can see that.
Yeah, but in the world of lesbian fiction, even fan fiction, love conquers all. So
and it did.
It could, well, eventually, yeah, but by lifetime, okay.
I guess a lot of it has to do with the soulmate premise. That no matter what, you're eventually going to get together. And I personally I don't know that I believe in the soulmate premise in real life. So fiction can get away with a lot, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, you could be right there. But I mean, it wasn't a painful read. It's just that I rolled my eyes several times and went oh please. But it wasn't like painful to read, unlike some other things that I've read over the years that I'm like, are you kidding me? But no, it was still a decent story. You still get immersed in their world, and it's still enjoyable. So
I know that you mentioned that you had some issues with the flashbacks, and those did. Well, I didn't have issues with them necessarily. They were excessive, and but I don't know exactly how else you would have gotten the story across. Yeah,
they could have just done it linear. And thank God you said that, because you know how much I hate flashbacks? I absolutely forgot about the flashbacks. I went page through them pretty damn quick, so I probably missed some nuances there. But yeah, I hate flashbacks. I mean, one, maybe two that aren't real long, okay, I can get that. But if you're going to keep going back and forth, kind of like the, Ollie Volley book that we talked about a couple of shows back. If you're going to go back and forth, you're going to lose me. You're going to lose me. But if you have that much story to tell, that you're doing it that frequently, maybe you should write the book in a linear fashion.
I would agree there. I think it would have been better writing it in linear fashion and then towards the end maybe flashbacking to important parts if you need reminding.
Yeah.
But I actually did enjoy the story. I found it a little unbelievable that hellion teenage girl would, in the course of a month, turn around.
Yeah.
Become a wonderful daughter. I had a little problem with that.
Was it that fast?
Overall, it seemed like it.
It was actually a tad bit longer. I mean,
I know she was out there for 6 months, but I know she did come around. Well, I think the turning point for her was that young girl's death.
Yes, that really rocked her world.
She jumped into recovery almost. It seemed like it was in the first week that she was there with Taylor.
Well, she was. Taylor made her go to AA the first week they were there, or she was there with her. Yes.
And then she started acting like a human being, and I don't, and loved her mother and wanted to talk to her mom and everything, and I'm just had a little trouble with how quickly she turned around.
Valid point.
But I did love the story personally. I really did.
Excellent. Okay, well, let's see. So that one you can get get online for free if you want to check it out. And there really was, like I think I had mentioned before, I saw no difference between the online version and the published version. There was a typo or something. There was an error in the online version that had stood out to me for some reason, and when I read the published version, it was right there. So, if you don't have $10 to drop or 17 for the paper version, go check it out online. So the next story that we selected was Tumbleweed Fever. Tumbleweed Fever is the story of Devlin Brown, a former outlaw, and Sarah Tolliver, a widow who is also a cattle rancher. This one, I don't know how it was described online, but this is certainly an Uber. I don't know how much more Uber this one could get.
Definitely.
Yeah, and that was it. I really didn't catch all of the overlays, if you will, the first time I read it, but they certainly stood out to me this time. Devlin Brown, first of all, has a horse named Alto instead of Argo, and she was kind of turned around from the outlaw life by a hulking man named Hank, who is very much the Hercules character. She was, after trying to prevent a rape of a young girl, her gang turned against her, beat her, raped her, and left her, and Hank found her, which again is very, very similar to the entire Gauntlet and all of those things. So then she meets Sarah Tolliver, refuses to work her ranch because Sarah needs a wrangler to help protect her ranch from the other cattlemen who are trying to take it away from her, because a woman should not own a ranch. And I'll just toss it off at that.
Well, did you notice that Sarah is the widow of Peter, who she loved as a friend?
Yes, I did catch that. The Perdiccas tie in there, right?
Yeah, that was really well done. I really love Westerns. The first show we did, I talked about how much I love period pieces. Of course, Westerns would fit right in, and I didn't even know how much I liked them until I stumbled upon them in the fanfic world, and Tumbleweed Fever stood out. I really, really enjoyed that because it had a lot of the components that you look for in those, Xena Ubers, and it was there. Right down to the fact that they knew they were both physically drawn to each other, and the closer they got, there's a few instances where they tried to actually kiss, and it didn't work out. They kept getting interrupted. That was really quite cute. I think she did a really, really good job with Tumbleweed Fever.
Yeah, this one really struck me. I had no question in my mind that this was an Uber. Yeah. I noticed there was a quote in there where it's talking about Hank saving her. And it says, Hank knew no matter what a person's past held, they could change if they really wanted to. He told her all it took was to take that first step. And I was like, oh, that's so Hercules. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But, Sarah's out there looking for her soulmate, sending those notes out. And L.J. Maas makes no apologies or excuses. She blatantly admits she got that from, let's see, where did she get that from?
Yeah, a film.
She says she got it from a movie called Conager.
Yeah, I don't ever recall seeing that. But after I read that, I'm thinking, you know what, I might want to check that movie out just to see where the influence came from,
That was one thing that we didn't. That's how we got the name of the story, Tumbleweed Fever. And later on in the book, Hank says, "Oh, something about, half the cowboys in town or whatever have tumbleweed fever, because Sarah's been sending these little notes. She writes these little notes, almost like her personal thoughts about her life, and wishing she had a lover who could keep her safe and share her life with. And she writes these down and rolls them up and ties them to pieces of tumbleweed and sends them out. Well, you hear Devlin has about a dozen of them in her pocket. She keeps finding them. And so that's where they get the title from.
Yeah. Overall, I think this is one of my favorite Westerns, and certainly one of my favorite L.J. Maas stories. Most definitely. But she's got such a variety, which, of course, in my quasi-inebriated state, I did not highlight the various stories that she's put out there, that she's lent her talent to. And I'll do that now, even if it doesn't seem to be the appropriate place.
I've got a list. Do you want a list?
I've got one. Let's see if I've got everything on your list. She did
I bet you do.
Maybe. She did the Queen series, which was very, very good. She did the Conqueror series, which we talked about on the last podcast, which is phenomenal. What a great job. She's got a story called Rebecca's Cove, which I know was published, but I actually haven't read that one yet.
I read that one. That's just a standard modern romance. Sue, have you read that one?
I have not read that one yet. I believe I just downloaded that from her Yahoo group.
Okay.
Read.
Oh, I didn't know it was available online. That one.
Let me make sure I'm not hallucinating. Rebecca's Cove. Yeah, you can get it in Word document format.
Oh, okay. Well, that's okay. It was worth the $10. Rebecca's Cove, if I remember correctly, kind of a city girl, a city woman who's kind of a woman's woman, a womanizer, moves to Rebecca's Cove. It's like an island, I think, to spend time with her dying aunt, or her sick aunt. Her aunt has broken a hip, I believe, and she then I can't remember the woman's name, but it's really good. It's funny. It's got some great characters in it. I was really pleasantly surprised. So if you can get it.
I'm looking on one of her web pages, her description of it, and she says this is not a love at first sight story, as both women find the other completely annoying and self-righteous.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, excellent.
They don't like each other at all. At all. Matter of fact,
that'll be a nice change.
Yeah, I believe one of the characters runs over the other one with a car, and that's how they meet.
Oh, nice. Nice. Don't give it away, because I do want to read that one.
No, I think that happens like immediately.
That's like first impressions on your bumper.
Take it from one who's been run over by a car. Not a good way to make a good first impression.
Oh, no, I guess not. Dang. Wow.
It was pretty good. I enjoyed it very much. And then Meridio's Daughter,
which I'm actually rereading now. I think I'm about 14% of the way through it. And I almost vividly remember it. And it's not one of my favorites. It really
wasn't
isn't.
One of mine either.
No. And the last, and I have not read this because, quite frankly, LJ put on there a disclaimer that it was G-rated. It's called Our Little World. I guess it's a kid's series about Katie and Charlie, about how she takes them from when they're kids to when they're adults. And quite frankly, it was G-rated. I'm moving on.
I haven't heard of that. But you know what? Tumbleweed Fever wasn't that. Tumbleweed Fever was PG at best.
No.
You got a couple booby gropings and some fingers and some hair. That's about it.
Oh, well, then it's Prairie Fire that got. Then maybe it's Prairie Fire that actually pulled out all the stops.
Prairie Fire, yeah, they consummate. Well, Prairie Fire starts 2 weeks after Tumbleweed Fever ends, and it starts out with them like really trying to get a few minutes alone because they still had not consummated their relationship. But then even after that first consummation, everything else is the fade to black, at least as far as I am in it.
Yeah, but at least she gave you a little taste. Thank you. But I find that Prairie Fire, but Prairie Fire was really quite good. I mean, it delved into the spirit world and how, Sarah was able to become part of the clan as a highly, not coveted, but, highly respected medicine woman, which
Don't
I guess...
give it away. I'm not done yet.
Oh. But it's very good, and she left that one at the end. You knew that in the back of her mind somewhere there would probably be a third or that would be a trilogy, but she obviously succumbed to the ravages of cancer and didn't have an opportunity to continue that story.
In Tumbleweed Fever, reading the online version compared to the published version, I read the online version a while ago and started rereading it just a few days ago, and then decided to go ahead and buy it. So I got only a few pages into it, but there were a few differences. In Tumbleweed Fever Online, the Devlin is called a rider. They're riders.
Yes, because she said in her notes that she can't stand the term cowboy and cowgirl, or the terms cowboy and cowgirl.
So they were called riders. However, but in the published one, she changed that to wranglers. But it was changed back in Prairie Fire. In Prairie Fire, they're still called riders.
Interesting.
Which I thought was interesting. And then one line that I thought was really good in the online version got cut from the. I think they did in the beginning of the God, this damn gin is kicking in and my brain's going.
Now you feel like me with menopause. Hello.
So in the beginning, before the book starts, whatever that's called, maybe the acknowledgments or the foreword, maybe. They talked about that they did more editing on this one than maybe on some of the others. And one of this, I'm just going to read this line from the online version that didn't make it in, and it talks about it's pretty early on, and Devlin is talking about when she went into the general store to buy a length of ribbon to tie the notes with, and she's talking about the reaction to. That the girls at the store have to her in comparison to the women at Ellen's. Ellen's is the bordello. And she says, the worst part wasn't the way the shop girls looked at her and hoped she'd go away. The funny thing, though, at Ellen's, the girls fight to wait on me. In a store, they fight to get away from me. Guess that's what respectable means. And that didn't make it in. That got cut.
Why? I wonder. That's pretty profound.
Yeah, and I went back and forth twice just to make sure that I hadn't missed it, and sure enough, it was gone. And then I'm not sure, but I thought I remembered in Tumbleweed Fever a scene where Hank is with his male partner at some point, like they come to the door together or they come over for dinner or something together, and there was no mention of Hank's partner, just that he preferred the company of men. Do either of you remember that?
I don't remember. I remember that there was a partner, but I don't remember meeting the partner in the online version.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't either.
In the published version, there's no mention of a partner at all. The only mention of Hank's sexuality is the one conversation that's had with Sarah, where she's trying to determine if Hank and Devlin had ever been lovers before, and Hank says, well, she's not really my type. And Sarah says, what? A strong, fierce woman is not your type? And he says, well, it's the woman part. So
I remember that in the online version.
You do?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, but I swear, yeah, and there was a mention of a partner at the very least, and then the published version there isn't.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I guess that answered my question. I was going to ask if the published version was any longer or more extensive or bulked out any.
It's a while since I had. Let me see. I've got. I'll just look at the page count, and I mean it should be a little bit longer on the published because of the other crap that gets thrown in.
The bulk.
No, they're about the same. No, it looks like the published one might be a little bit shorter, actually. So,
well,
maybe, yeah, not too much.
We got more bang for no buck online. Nice. Anybody want to talk about any of the other works, the Queen series?
Well, I'll tell you, the Queen series and the Conqueror series were the only ones I had read prior to getting ready for this, and I'm a huge fan of both of them. Mm-hmm. They're just incredible, but they're long.
Yeah, they're definitely long. I really liked the Conqueror series, but I had early on when I read it had a problem with the Solon character. I thought he was just a little too belligerent for my taste, and it was just kind of But he turned around like like he should have, and wound up being quite the ally and quite the supporter. But I had a really hard time initially. Well, first of all, I always have a hard time with, Gabrielle being the Gabrielle character being abused to the extent that she was, especially in the Conqueror series, because she was basically, the poor thing was, fucked from here to kingdom come, and not, okay. But my mind went off on a tangent. But, it just bugged me, because I always see the Gabrielle character when from this series, and it was just like, oh, poor Gabrielle. I just get all teary-eyed, for God's sake.
Well, in the Conqueror series, Gabrielle was made a slave at age 10. Yep. And then Xena meets her at age 20. And in her notes, she says the timeline is of her own making. Xena is the Lord Conqueror of Greece, but she is almost 45 years old when she meets the slave Gabrielle. Many of Xena's evil ways have been sedated, but not all. I call this Xena the thinking woman's conqueror. She's a woman who wants to try to do the right thing, but doesn't always know how. And there seems to be two different types of conqueror stories. There's some that go directly from the episode Armageddon Now and continue forward, and then there's others that are just completely alternative timelines.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yep. No, perfect sense.
Yeah.
But in this one, Gabrielle has spent half of her life since she was 10 years old being a body slave.
Yeah, because she said in those first opening few pages that when the Conqueror asked her how long she had been a body slave, she said that same season that she was taken as a slave, which, just cuts to your heart. You know what I mean?
But I really did enjoy this. It's hard to see Gabrielle so timid, and what I enjoyed was how by the end of the first story, Journey's End, Gabrielle is much stronger. Her personality has started to come out again.
Mm-hmm. And Xena worked really hard to get that. Xena had worked really, really hard to get her to that point. Mm-hmm. Just the constant reinforcements and, making her really have faith in herself and to voice her opinions, demanding it.
And was anybody shocked, like I was the first time I read it, when she was being challenged for the mask of Queen, and she wound up pulling out of her bag of tricks that she had been tutored in the martial arts, but what wound up happening is to save her sanity, the martial arts master that taught her also hypnotized her so she forgot her training so that she would not wind up getting put to death because she would challenge a master's right to do whatever he or she wanted to her.
Right.
I forgot about that.
Yep.
It was a huge surprise, but I thought it was delightful because we've got the Gabrielle character coming back, the one that we know.
Yes,
who
exactly.
Who's able to take care of herself again.
But think about, LJ's thought process with that. I mean, that was a phenomenal, it was a stroke of genius, really. To how she worked that in. Yeah, it was really, really quite amazing.
I'll tell you one thing that I liked about, a lot of LJ's writing is the little she'll, even in a serious, dramatic story, she inserts these little one-line jokes that I think are hilarious. In Journey's End, there's a scene where she and Gabrielle have been doing the nasty in the other room, and she's got a meeting with all her advisors, and they've been listening to this.
Oh, yeah.
And she's got to come out. She's got to go into this room with all these advisors, and they're all kind of grinning and smirking. And she takes her dagger out of her belt, puts it on the desk, and says, "The first man that leaves here one member short of a threesome."
Yeah,
it says every man suddenly lost his need to smile, yet had an incredible urge to cross his legs.
It was fabulous.
And in Time Spell Hand, there's a scene. I'm sure running him through with my sword would be more gratifying than hitting, but my new sense of morality and Gabrielle prevented me from killing my friends over minor infractions. Those cute little images I just thought were so funny.
Yeah. She was she had quite the talent. Yeah,
she has that humor in every one of her stories, no matter how serious it is. Even mixed in with the incredibly serious, she can have something just kind of out of the blue that kind of takes you off a little bit.
Yep.
Because she can do some angst.
Oh, yeah, she can do angst.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess what we take away from this, listeners, is you will not go wrong if you try any one of L.J. Maas's stories. Of course, we have all expressed what our favorites are. But really, go read and check them out and find for yourself that little jewel or that little gem that talks to you, that showcases the skill, the crafts, the words that just poured out of LJ. She was truly an amazing talent that is missed every day.
Mm-hmm. I had a friend of mine who hadn't really heard of L.J. Maas before. I'm looking for an email that she had sent me. And because of our last show, went and picked up some of her work. And she just said, damn it, I'm not going to be able to find this now. Hold on, talk amongst yourselves, and then I'll come back.
Well, Sue, we were. I was talking with the Rev on email about maybe at some future point having a Westerns show, because like The Conqueror, she and I both really, really love a good Western. And I read a story called Fetching Cousin Minnie. Have you ever read it?
No, I have not.
Fetching Cousin Minnie has got to be one of the best Westerns I have ever read in the fanfic world. It is truly a lot of fun. The hardest part of that story is getting through Gain, who is the Xena character, the archetype character, getting through her, I don't know if you call it slang, I don't know what the hell it is, but once you can get past it, it flows, it's okay. But she talks in this very strange, I don't want to call it dialect, but it's definitely some kind of a southern slang. And at first it's a little, it kind of distracts from the story, but once you get used to it, it's good. It's very good. You got to read it. As a matter of fact, I emailed the author, who is B. Sorry, and asked her, or first I praised her about how wonderful that story was, that I was just overcome. And she thanked me, she's very gracious, and asked her if she was going to produce a sequel, because she left it in a very satisfying place, but you knew that there was more story to be told. And she says, yes, as a matter of fact, I'm working on a sequel now. And there are 2 or 3 chapters that are already posted to some site. I don't remember what it was. And I went over there and I'm like, because, me, I'm one of those people that I do not want to read something until it's done, because it just pisses me off, just left hanging there. But I like this story so much that I went and started reading the next couple of submissions. And, of course, it's still not done. And it's like almost a year later, and I'm really aggravated. I feel like emailing her again. God damn it, would you finish the goddamn story? I'm just driving me crazy. But seriously, if you have the propensity, or just don't run screaming for the hills reading westerns, try Fetching Cousin Minnie.
Well, I have to say, yeah, Tumbleweed Fever was my first adventure into Xena westerns.
There's some good ones.
I've never read one before. So it's an entirely new genre for me to read.
Yeah, Attack was good. Yeah. Okay, so Rev, are you back on track? What you're looking for?
I am back on track. So this is an email that I got, and I'm not going to give her name, but she says, thanks to your podcast, I'm now in love with L.J. Maas. I want to read everything of hers I can get my hands on. Reading her is like looking at an exquisite piece of art. I think she's in the middle of something that was moving, so that may have had something to do with it. But I'm telling you, you're not going to be disappointed if you read anything in the lesbian romance genre. You don't want to miss it. You don't want to miss her stuff.
What did y'all think about the Queen series by L.J. Maas?
It's been a really long time since I read it, but was that the one we kind of talked about this before? Was that the one where at the end they had Aphrodite and Athena or Artemis both trying to knock Gabrielle up? Was that the one?
No, this one.
Okay.
This one starts. It starts with Gabrielle's raped, and she dreams. When she dreams it's Xena that's raping her. Xena feels guilty, and they go to a dreamscape healer to fix that.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
Then the next story, she's planning. Xena's planning to propose, but Gabrielle gets kidnapped before she can do it. Then the third story is when we find out that Apollo is Gabrielle's father.
Right.
And when Xena is sent to fight Hera to save the lives of all the Amazons, she gets a little dose of God power and winds up knocking up Gabrielle. So Gabrielle is pregnant. And then the next story you want to talk angst. The next story, I can't remember the name of it, but the next story, Gabrielle loses the baby and becomes that Hera's influence. Hera actually kills the baby. It's stillborn. And Gabrielle becomes suicidal, and she runs away, and they find out that it's all Hera's fault. And she finds out that Ares is supposed to be her guardian, her guide. And she's like, I hope you're not going to tell me you're supposed to be my fairy godfather, because if you are, you're doing a piss poor job. And he is. So she has to learn her new powers, and it's a good series. Sometimes I think she's reaching a little, to come up with the emotional, dangerous situations.
Mm-hmm. I remember that. I read the first one not that long ago, and I did enjoy that. I did enjoy the relationship, and I don't recall the names of them now, but the healer and the dreamscape healer, I enjoyed their relationship, and how the healer was able to work with Gabrielle, by using the parallels of her physical scars with Gabrielle's emotional scars, and that.
Yes, that was Satori. And her partner, right. Adia, is the dreamscape healer.
I do remember feeling kind of that whole reaching thing again when it turns out that Apollo was Gabrielle's father.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty inspired too, actually. The sun god, that was a great idea.
I remember the battling aspects of, I don't know. I think that one. And again, it's been a long time, but my gut feeling is remembering that it just wasn't. It wasn't as strong as maybe some of the other parts of the series, but I could be wrong. It's been a while.
Well, I'll tell you. It's not the first story I've read where Apollo is Gabrielle's father, and it's feasible. She does show the same characteristics of the sun god. But I'll tell where I thought that LJ was really reaching. It seemed like she needed to throw a little more angst in there. Is the story of their wedding, and they get married and everything's happy-go-lucky, and then Xena they're getting ready to get married, and then Xena has a stroke, and she's about to die, and then suddenly she comes back to life, and it just seemed like that whole scenario was completely unnecessary. I'm trying to flip through my notes to see which story that was, but
well, just while you're flipping through your notes, I think there's a closer affiliation between Apollo and Gabrielle, or the Gabrielle archetype character, than we really think about, because in Greek mythology, Apollo is associated not just with the sun, but with music and poetic inspiration, archery, prophecy, medicine. So it really kind of does point to the things that you come to expect from a Gabrielle type character.
Yeah, I've always agreed. I don't have a problem with picking Apollo as her father, because it would explain a lot about her and her personality.
Yeah,
I found in my notes what I was talking about. It's in the heart of the Queen, and it's just towards the very end. The story's almost completely wrapped up, and then Xena has a stroke, and the Fates are going to, cut her thread, and they do cut her thread. And Apollo goes to talk to the Fates to try to ask them to change their mind. They say we can't, and then they find out that Gabrielle is powerful enough to change their will. They want Gabrielle to live, and Gabrielle's like, not going to happen. And so they bring her back. It just seemed like it was a subplot that was kind of thrown in there at the last minute. And I'm not sure what the purpose was. It was a very small section at the very end of Heart of the Queen.
Well,
I'm not sure why I had
Go ahead.
I'm just not sure why I had a problem with it. It seemed like it was thrown in there as an afterthought and really served no purpose.
It may well have been. Maybe she was going to expound on that later. Maybe that's what it was. It was a lead-in. It
could be. There is a cute line in there. It's after everybody's written Xena off, she's dying, and then she comes back to life when the Fates change their minds. And she comes out, and everybody's about to pass out because they thought she was dead, and now she's alive. And she leans over and says, "Gee, you'd think they'd never seen anybody die and come back to life before. It happens to us all the time." That almost made it worth having that little scene in there. Mm-hmm. Just that line.
I'm going to have to go back and reread the Queen series now. It's been so long since I've read it.
Yeah. It's definitely no hardship to go back and read any of her stuff.
No doubt. No doubt.
Oh, absolutely not.
So did you want to talk any more about L.J. Maas?
I think I'm good.
Did you want to?
I've always been a big fan of hers, and thanks to the show, I was encouraged to read some of hers that I'd never read before. And my friend Rio over at the library has put up a page for L.J. Maas that has not just her works, but also a few links, her personal site, the Academy of Bards author page, and places like that. So got one-stop shopping there.
Yay. So that means listeners, go check out the site, conquerorslibrary.com, and there on the homepage is a link to all things L.J. Maas. Now that we have Sue's attention, Rev, this is a really good time for you to tell her about that lost story that you're looking for.
Excuse me, I was taking a drink. Okay, so I was reading this story. I'm sure it was a Conqueror story because Gabrielle was a body slave. They were out in battle. After battle, they come back to their tent, and there was some relief of battle lust using an ivory phallus. That's all I remember about this story, but I remember that I really enjoyed it, but, because I have a thing for the phalluses, I think.
think you do.
That's the part that stood out to me, and I cannot, for the life of me, remember what story that was, and it's driving me crazy.
I can't think of it off the top. Well, I can't think of it off the top of my head, but it won't take me long to do a quick search and find it. Because her being a body slave, we can narrow it down pretty quick.
Yay.
But I'll take a look for it and try to find it for you.
Thank you.
So what are we reviewing for the next podcast, Rev?
Okay, so we're doing Open to Persuasion. I'm writing it down, and once it's written down, that's what's happening.
Damn.
Open to Persuasion, and we're doing the Winter Pennington.
Oh, the first of the Winter Pennington? Yeah, I'm actually going to purchase the second one this weekend.
Okay. I have the first one. I just haven't had a chance to. I've got like 5 or 6 books yet that I have, that I bought that I haven't read yet. Pennington. I got a sweet gift card for my birthday. Then I stocked up, and then you've been keeping me too busy to read any of the shit that I bought. I love blaming you for stuff. It's awesome.
Isn't it great?
I tell you, I've got a huge project going on at the at Conqueror's Library. One of my members sent me this huge, sent Rio, and she sent it to me, a huge Excel file with 13,000 Xena fan fiction on it.
Wow.
Xena fan fiction stories. And I'm supposed to be going through it and checking links, and I keep stopping and reading a story, and then I get sidetracked. I want to read more about it. I've had this thing for like 2 months. Thank you, Tracy, my member who sent us the list. But I'm not even through the A's yet. I'm sidetracked reading the damn stories.
Damn.
Are you looking for volunteers to help? I bet we've got a few listeners that wouldn't mind helping out.
Oh, I would love that. If everybody would pick a letter and check links.
Excellent.
It's because one day in the future, we'd love to have every Xena fan fiction there is out there on the library.
So, the library, you guys don't house anything. You provide links, right?
We are totally an index site. We provide links to other sites who do host the stories.
Excellent. So if readers find some new sites, they should send them on your way. And if they find any of your links that are no longer valid, they should let you know?
Oh, yes. I'm allergic to broken links. That's the whole reason why the library exists.
Nice.
I definitely want to know if any of my links are broken. And if you know of any stories, send them our way.
Excellent.
And what's a good email address?
You can send me an email by signing up for an account on our site and send an email that way.
There you go. Excellent.
So one day in the future, our very ambitious goal is to have every Xena fan fiction linked to our site.
That is an ambitious goal, but worthy. Definitely worthy. Well, I got to say, this has been a very, very fun show. I really think that Sue added quite a bit to our
discussion.
There you go. Thank you. Yeah, I think that Gin and Tonics really, boiling out what few brain cells I have left. But yes, Sue, it was just so much fun. So much fun.
I had a blast. Thank you so much for inviting me on.
It was our pleasure.
Yay, we had a guest, and it worked out pretty well.
I think so, too.
Absolutely.
And you didn't have to tell her to shut up.
Could you just shut up for just a second while I'm trying to talk? That'd be great.
I'm sorry.
Oh, please. And, we always encourage listeners to buy books. We always do that. And,
excellent.
Yep. And if you have any show suggestions for the future, please let us know. If you would like to be a guest on Cocktail Hours, you can see we didn't roast our first guest. So if you'd like to be on here for putting in your 2 cents in our insanity, give us an email. Let us know. Give us a shout out. And keep them coming. Okay, so we're going to wrap up this show. It has been a lot of fun. Thank you, Sue, for your participation and being brave enough to come on. And thank you, Rev, in your inebriated state, for all of your insights. It's just,
yay!
I know, it just pisses me off that you can still be so cogent and demonstrative and enlightened and still have a snap-on. What the hell? It ain't right. I'm telling you.
A snap-on? I have a strap-on. I don't know.
Oh, Okay.
Yes, I'm not going to let my grandma listen to this one, right?
I guess not. Oh, my hell. I don't even know if
Since Andy bought me one of my harnesses.
Yeah, I got the best harnesses in the world, and I ain't sharing. Okay. So, thank you all for listening. It has been a lot of fun, and tell your friends. We need more than 6 followers. Thank you.
Bearded clam, damn it.
Oh, yeah, no bearded clam. Come on, authors. Pony up. Bearded clam. Let's go.
Colette, I am so disappointed.
Well, Colette's not even a follower, that hussy. You know, I told her on Cocktail Hour when she was telling us what the name of the bar was in her new book coming out. Did you see what I put as a response? Close, but no orgasm.
Yeah, I love that. That made me laugh.
And she with that little, like, oh, no face. So
I'm so disappointed.
I know.
How fucking hard is it? Bearded clam, come on. Damn it.
Well, you know, maybe there's other people out there besides me that have hair issues.
Whatever.
That
That
okay.
shit.
Yeah, all right.
Thank you, Sue, for coming and not hanging up on us or anything like that. And
Thanks for letting me play. I enjoyed myself.
Well, we should have some type of a quiz.
Well, okay, there goes the crickets. You know, I keep.
Just saying, thanks for letting me play. Well, maybe we should have a quiz.
Well, yeah, but then you said thanks for coming, and I didn't hear any, groaning and moaning and, high-pitched relief. I mean, I didn't hear none of that. What was it? When I went to the bathroom? Is that when it happened?
Yeah, I'm not into sharing.
Well, excuse me.
Fine, you find me that big ivory phallus and we'll talk.
You're consumed by the ivory phallus. Well, on that note, we hope you will stay tuned and listen to us in our upcoming podcast, and should be in 2 weeks. Thanks all for listening.